All right, man. Welcome to the Gouda. Today we have Paul here. Paul was a lead combat medic in the operation of Tabqa with the YPG Kurdish forces against Islamic State, and then also he was a counter sniper / medic in Raqqa. Took Raqqa. Go ahead, Paul. Introduce yourself and say a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm Paul. I served almost 2 years in Syria with 3 different militias, the YPG, Kurdish Defense Forces, the MFS Syriac Military Council, and the Assyrian Hammer Defense Forces. I was on 2 operations, Battle of Tabqa Dam in April of 2017, and then the Battle for Raqqa. I was in part of the initial phase 1 of the surrounding the city, and then I participated in the actual siege of the city, which lasted a little over 5 months over the summer and fall of 2017.
Wow. First, why don't you start us out? Where are you from, man? Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? What type of lifestyle did you have as a kid?
Grew up in L.A. and Eastern Washington. Just had a pretty normal upbringing. Nothing out of the ordinary. It was pretty typical.
What did you do out of high school? What did you get into after high school?
Out of high school, I moved down to. I went to college for a little while, about 2 years.
Where at?
In Southern Washington.
For what?
Psychology and
Nice.
Chemistry.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then moved down to San Diego with my girlfriend and lived down there. Ended up living there for about 7 years before I moved out to Tucson.
Right on, man. So, when was your first time traveling out of the country? What brought you into the soldier world, and what was your motivation to become a soldier?
First time traveling out of the country was 2004. When I visited my girlfriend down in South America, in Argentina. But introduction to the military was actually I wanted to be an Air Force pilot when I was really young. But then I actually, funny story, when I was I think it was 6th or 7th grade, during they had those career fairs or like career.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the teachers had asked me what I wanted to be, and I said gorilla. And and the kids was like, "What do you mean, like a monkey?" I said, "No," and I explained what a gorilla was. It's
like a guerrilla fighter.
Gorilla fighter. And so I explained what a gorilla was, and the teacher didn't even know, but she was pretty concerned. Called my parents, called them to the principal, and was like, "Taylor's saying he wants to be like a terrorist or something, or he wants to like." No, that's actually not what that's about. But I was really interested in guerrilla and insurgency movements from the time I was about 13, 14, followed the Zapatistas. And
so you followed different groups in Central America, South America,
like
the FARC,
and,
they're
M19
paramilitary. Because I think in South America, I think one of the most interesting guerrilla groups was the FARC, and then their rivals, which were the paramilitaries that supported the government but were also hated by the government. So you studied, so you studied those type of groups, like you were interested in that, and not communism, right? Just explain that a little.
No, at the time I was pretty left leaning. Actually, I mean, like a lot of younger people are. Had no actual experience of that kind of system of and just had this idealistic vision of what it was like and the kind of world that sort of ideology could bring into being, which just totally idealistic. No no basis in reality. No, I didn't have any experience, living with any of these groups, or obviously, I never served with any of these groups at the time until Syria.
Right on. So back to becoming a soldier. When was your first time you decided, hey, I want to go somewhere and join a movement or join, and what was that movement, and what was that all about?
2009. I decided that I wanted to participate in the war on terror, and I did believe in the central tenets of that war, but I didn't really agree with.
Restate that. What do you mean by support the war on terror? Like,
the war against Al Qaeda.
Yeah, Al Qaeda.
Yeah, and it was Islamist movements.
Yeah.
But I didn't really agree with what was going on in Iraq at the time, and I didn't want any part in
the
that.
U.S. occupation.
Yeah, and with the initial invasion.
And is that why you never actually joined the U.S. military, or?
No, that's not the reason. That's the reason why at the time I chose to join the French Foreign Legion. Later on, I changed my stance on it somewhat. But yeah, at the time, 2009,
So you traveled to France?
Yeah.
And did you go to Abu Dhabi, or did you go to Paris to join
Albania?
Yeah, is that what it is? Is that how you pronounce it?
Albania? Yeah.
Abu Dhabi. I don't speak French, man. I don't know. I studied a lot about the French Foreign Legion, man, and some badass motherfuckers, man. Some badass, the training that they go through is it's extraordinary. And then to hear how a lot of these legionnaires come from very poor countries and then join this. A lot of people call them mercenaries, and I think that's so disrespectful, man. I think that's just so disrespectful. These are people that are... I
don't think that's the proper term.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I mean, they could say the same thing about Mexicans who join the U.S. Marines and then they become citizens. A lot of those guys go on to become French citizens. That's
yeah. Especially, I think there's a thing called a citizen...
By spilled blood.
Spilled blood, yeah.
Yeah. If
you're injured in
your first 5 years, then you're automatically a French citizen.
Right on.
Otherwise, you go through the 5 years and you become a citizen.
Yeah,
and
so
I think that's
explain the Legion. Explain the Legion, man. How was that for you?
Well, that was, again, I had a very idealized image of what it was going to be like. And I thought we were going to just go, it was just going to be really hard training, and then we're just going to go right into combat and be all over Africa doing peacekeeping missions. And but, of course, turned out to be nothing like that in reality. I mean, we knew guys, Kevin and I knew guys who were in, who had gone in before we went to Syria, who were still in while we were fighting in Raqqa, who had never been deployed. Yeah, so, my idea of what the Legion was going to be like was very idealized, and I learned pretty quick that, when guys were asking me, like, well, why didn't, was there something that was preventing you, from joining the Marines? And I said, no, I just wanted to be a Legion, and they're like, you're fucking crazy, like, why would you come here? And I learned pretty quick that it was not the place, like they say, there are 3 types of guys who come there. There are the, idealists, dreamers, just total fucking lunatics, and then guys who genuinely need to be there, who have nowhere else to go. Like you said, like some of the guys from poorer countries, who, to them, it's a really good opportunity. And again, like going back to what you're saying about people calling them mercenaries, I do think that's really disrespectful, and that is just like Mexicans or other, maybe Central South Americans who join the Marine Corps and serve and then become U.S. citizens. I think, those men are much more American than a lot of, citizens by birth here. They understand a lot more what this country is really about. Yeah. They've actually served and they've sacrificed, and they're really a part of the country. They've contributed to it, and they understand what it's all about, whereas there are people who go their entire lives without ever even really interacting with the system here, or really understand what it means to be an American. So much the same, with the Legion, with guys, from like, Somalia or who join and become French citizens, very similar. So I think to a lot of those guys, it's a really good opportunity. But for a Westerner, really, unless you've really fucked up and just have nowhere. And I actually knew a guy who was disqualified from the U.S. military. He had just a criminal record longer than your arm, and he actually went in and he really made something of himself.
Yeah, of course. Just to let everybody know, unless you're a murderer wanted by Interpol or a child molester, we don't fuck with pedos. If you feel like your life is taking a rough turn, you don't really have nowhere to look at, you feel like you're turning towards crime to survive, understand that there is a French Foreign Legion for you, and I understand that it's kind of a extreme step to better your life or to get out of whatever situation you're from, but it's better than jail and it's better than the grave. And that's why a lot of people go to the French Foreign Legion to better themselves, to escape conviction. As long as you're not a child molester, pedophile, or if you are a murderer wanted by Interpol, there is hope for you in the French Foreign Legion. So, after you served in the French Foreign Legion,
well, I left very early. As
Did
I
you-
said, no, I never deployed with them.
did you get your Capi Blanc? I think
No,
that's what the Capi Blanc?
Kepi.
The Capi?
No, I left before. So basically, in the Legion, you can leave up to a certain point and get out, honorably. If you just feel that it's really not the place for you.
Yeah.
If you stay in past a certain point and finalize your contract, then you are in for 5 years, and the only option to get out early is to desert. And I did not want to do that. So I thought about staying a little longer, but I knew pretty early on, within the first month, I knew that it was not the place that.
Yeah, I heard if you sign that contract, you can have some family letters, and it's really based on the commander if they want to dismiss your contract or not. But I heard it's very hard to do.
I don't know of anybody who's gotten out.
Yeah. I've only known a couple
desertion.
that have deserted.
No, I've known quite a few deserted.
Yeah. So what brought you to Syria? Before that, I want to ask you, how did you fly into the Middle East?
Well, I flew in through Jordan into northern Iraq.
This is a weird thing because you're not in the military. You took a commercial flight. Was there any type of nervousness or like, damn, I'm flying to Iraq right now? Where in Iraq did you fly to?
Soleimania. Yeah.
Iraq, Kurdistani. Okay, so you flew from the U.S. probably to Europe, from Europe to Jordan, from Jordan to the Middle East?
Flew right from Chicago to Jordan.
Oh, shit. Okay, so from Chicago to Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay, and then when you were on that flight from Jordan to Iraq, what was going through your brain? I mean, you're going to a place you've never been to, a culture you're not involved in. What were you thinking?
Well, I was nervous about, potentially getting arrested, or because it is illegal, what I was doing. And I got detained in Jordan for about 10 hours and questioned. And
on the way to Iraq?
Yeah, before I even, while I was on my way to Iraq, the last stop before Iraq. They questioned me and detained me for about 10 hours or so. And one of the guys, there they've got military officers in the airports, and a couple of the guys were really jamming me up. They were going through my bag. They didn't do a very good job. And I noticed that a lot of, in the Middle East, they have no idea how to search somebody. I mean, I'll tell you a story later about how I smuggled a grenade into a prison. But, I had some equipment, some, like a trigger group for an AK-47 and a upgraded trigger. I had some scopes.
You traveled from the U.S. to Jordan with that.
Yeah.
So they didn't say anything about that.
No,
wow.
They didn't
Interesting.
But in Jordan, they asked me about, what's all this stuff, and they found, they confiscated my trigger group. I had a LK inspector, so I had like a little backup red dot sight, some medical equipment. The only thing they confiscated was my AK trigger, which the guy gave back to me later, and they confiscated and took my hemostats from my med kit. And that was it. They didn't even find my Elkin, this giant articulated telescope sight. Didn't even find that in my bag. They found a little, red dot sight, and he was like, "What's this for? Is this a compass?" I'm like, "No, it's for a rifle." He was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we have to take that." And so they confiscated all the stuff. They're asking me what I'm doing in Iraq, and one of the guys was pointing at me and yelling in Arabic. It was like, "Dash," like he's saying I was going to join ISIS, and this other guy's like, "He's not. No, he's not going to join Dash." And he actually went up to slap the guy, and yeah, he was a cool dude. He got all the guys. They were like surrounding me, and all like yelling and stuff. And
wow, it was a pretty big deal because of the trigger group.
Yeah,
and some of the stuff that you had. They knew that.
Well, no, it wasn't because of that. It was just regardless of all that, it was just because they knew where I was going, and I looked suspicious. And,
yeah.
But no, they gave me the guy. He got all these guys to fuck off. He was the commanding officer there, and he was like, he patted me on the back, and he was like, he said like thank you and
fucking no worries, huh?
Yeah, he knew what I was doing. I was going to fight ISIS, and he was grateful for that.
Yeah, because the Jordanians, if nobody knows, I think they had a pilot.
Yeah, that was crashed right after.
Was that actually the prince? Was that actually like a member of
no,
the
it was, but it was,
and he was burned
burned alive in
burned
a
alive.
cage. So that was and that was about the time that had happened. It was shortly.
I heard a rumor that the king of Jordan, or the leader of Jordan, actually king. Like he's a
special forces commander.
And he hopped inside of an aircraft and did a bombing run. Is that true? Do you?
No.
No. Okay. Because that's just I read that
there
somewhere.
There was some pictures of him like geared up. He had been in this like a special forces commander or something, but he right after that had happened, they took some pictures of him in his uniform all geared up, but he. I guess he's still. I mean, that's like a lot of those countries, like and in South America, the presidents will wear a uniform, and they'll have, even if they're not really in the military, and it's just kind of a, part of the image.
Yeah, part of the.
But this guy was actually in the military, and he wasn't still serving and didn't participate in.
So you fly into Iraq, and then let's go from there. So you fly into Iraq, Suleimania,
yeah,
Kurdistan. And what goes on from there?
I showed up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. Of course, couldn't get a hold of my YBG contact and
Hozan.
Yeah, Hozan, shady motherfucker. And the taxi driver turns out to know him, and he's like, "Oh, Hozan, yeah." And he drives me to his parents' house, and they're like, "What the fuck? Like, we don't know where he is." And he comes stumbling around the corner, like just all fucked up and like.
So these taxis have I'm from what you're saying, I'm guessing has received a lot of foreigners, and they ask for rides to
drill,
yeah
exactly.
They know the drill.
So this guy knew my contact. Drives me to his house. He comes out all fucked up and like hungover, and he's like,
really?
I didn't have any cash. I had a credit card. I was trying to pay a taxi with a credit card. He's like, what the fuck? Like looking at it like it's fucking. Nobody takes credit cards. They're so Hozan's like
Hozan's supposed to pay, right?
Yeah,
he pays it's your contact. That's your
exactly.
safeguard.
So then, takes me to the safe house, and I'm hanging out there with some other volunteers. They say we're gonna cross in like a day or two. It ends up, I learned then that the Kurds are not very punctual people. They don't really,
So a day or two means about a week?
It might be a week, might be a month. Ended up being like 2 weeks, and I ended up getting really sick. I came down with dysentery, and I'm like, are we actually leaving tomorrow? Because otherwise I like need to go to the hospital and like go next month because I'm getting really sick.
What were you eating? Were you eating any dairy?
Yeah, I ate, whatever anyone else was eating, yogurt and falafel and hummus and kebabs and but yeah, another guy got really sick too. But I got really sick on the truck over to Syria, and literally just barely made it. Like if we had waited another day.
So where did you go from the safe house? Where did you go from there?
Well, we drove past Duhok, about 100 miles west, and then had to cross on foot.
So you crossed where? Sorry.
On the Syrian-Iraqi border.
Okay, so I think that it's called the Tigris.
Yeah, Tigris
So
River.
you didn't stay in any mountains or
No,
anything like other volunteers?
no.
So you guys went straight from Suleimania
Yeah,
to the
straight to the
Tigris.
river. Went down on
And
foot
what
in the
year
middle
was
of the
that? I'm
night.
sorry. What year?
2016.
2016. Okay.
Yeah, I went down to the river on foot, carrying a boat. Tried to pump up by hand and cross in the middle of the night, and with a couple other Western volunteers, but mostly other Kurds, and which is surprising to me that some of these other Kurds had to get smuggled into Syria. There's actually one woman from Kobani who was with us, and so I don't know her story, but
And she was Kurdish.
yeah.
So she fought in the Battle of Kobani.
No, she was from Kobani.
She was from Kobani, but was just being transferred as a soldier or as a civilian.
I had no idea what her deal was.
Okay.
If she had been a refugee, gone to
Guerrilla, maybe guerrilla.
No, I mean she
No?
was taking the same path as the other volunteers. So
Right
I'm
on, so
guessing she was civilian and like a refugee in northern Iraq or something.
Okay. So you get into Syria, which is a Kurdish region called Rojava, which is Western Kurdistan, and from there, who greeted you? What did you see, and where were you at?
Well, you went directly to command center called Karacho, which was later bombed by the Turkish Air Force and like completely obliterated. But we were up there for about a day, just meeting up with other guys who were getting brought in, and then we all got together and went down the hill to a Western training academy, where we were going to learn Kurdish and take basic military training, which I mean their idea of training, which was kind of a joke, but
No, they just give you some what type of training, like guerrilla formations, or
well, we actually did do
weaponry,
we did
training.
do a little bit of guerrilla, like mountain warfare kind of stuff, which had no application in the fighting that we actually did.
So wait a minute. I'm sorry. Let me rewind you. So you got to a place where was supposed to be a training camp. How many foreigners were in your group?
About 30.
Wow, really? Shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Total. Some of them were on their way out, who were, who had finished fighting in Manbij and were.
We'll definitely get to the Battle of Manbij. We'll definitely get to the battle. That's a huge conversation. So you got there after Manbij in Syria, or while
as it was going on.
Yeah. If for people who don't know, the Battle of Manbij, man, it was one of the biggest battles for foreigners and for the Kurds against the Islamic State. There were videos. I remember being at home watching videos of the YPG coming into Manbij, and then I would watch videos of Islamic State fighters in the mosques of Manbij giving weapons, recruiting people. Basically, any man from the age of 14 to about 49 were given AK-47s. And so this was a huge battle that was gearing up. We're going to get to that in a second. But right now, we are getting to his training camp in Rojava. So there was about 30 of you guys. What was the training like? Was it just basically breakdown of the weapons you will be using and a little bit of formation, and it's just like to the front line? Or how was it? How did it go?
Well, yeah, we did some mountain training, which I thought was odd because it had no application in the kind of fighting that, northern Syria is almost completely flat. It's just plains and cities. And most of the fighting all the fighting I did was in cities, but some of the other guys did some fighting in what they call goons, little villages, but it's all flat land. So the mountain, training that we did had no application in what we actually were getting into, which I thought was odd. But we did just overview of all the weapons that we were going to be using, and then basic commands and formations and reactions to contact. But anybody who's been over there or knows anything about how things are there.
Right on. And then so they fed you guys, huh?
Yeah.
Cool, man. And what type of food? Just to let everybody know. I don't know. I know there's some good cookers that I see on my Facebook. Man, they post stuff of food. What type of food did you eat out there? Just a sidetrack. Just because I'm buzzed and I'm feeling like some good food.
Nothing that you would consider good food.
Yeah, it's a lot of beans, rice, and
sometimes literally just plain rice, plain chicken if you're lucky, like just plain boiled chicken.
Yeah, boiled
lentils.
Chicken, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And so they gave you guys some weapons training, and then sent you out to your units.
We went out to our units. Yep. So I'd been selected for the medical unit. So at that time they had lost a lot of guys, not to deaths. We're
because you had let me rewind you real quick. Sorry, you had medical training before this, or how did you get into that medical unit? Why did they put you in that medical unit? What skills did you possess?
Because I demonstrated. Actually, at the time, I thought with my level of skill and knowledge, I thought I was going to be, one of the lower level. I thought I had a lot of training to do. I thought I was going to be, like one of the lowest level guys there. But it turned out I met with the commander of the medical unit at the time, and so said they lost a lot of guys, not to deaths. We're actually the only unit who had no deaths in that operation. I had talked to the commander, and he's just given me, asking me questions like, okay, so what are the indications of tension pneumothorax? How do you treat it? What does this medicine do? What are the interactions between it? And I answered all his questions, and then I said, so just kind of get an idea of what I'm getting into. Is like, so what's the skill level of the other guys who are there right now? I said, where would I fit in? And he's like, well, he says, Bruce is our most experienced medic currently. And I said, okay, and where do I fit in there? He's like, you're going to be the second most experienced. And I said, oh, shit, okay.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I mean, at that time, guys were dying from literally from, getting shot in the arm or from basic, from the most survivable wounds, stuff that to a Westerner wouldn't even be a cause for concern. Was a fatal, injury.
So what you're trying to say is that the combat medical level that they had was
zero.
Very low. Wow, zero.
No, it was zero.
Wow.
Well, they literally had no medical unit.
Wow, really?
Westerners started the first medical unit in.
And why is that? Why do you think? I mean, they have been in this war since 2011. They started their revolution
in
against
the 70s,
Islamic. Well, in the 70s, but yeah, absolutely. In Iraq, definitely. But in Rojava, they started their revolution in 2011 or 2013. I forget. Was it 11?
Yeah.
Why haven't they progressed?
I think.
What the hell was that? Some fireworks.
Fireworks.
Yeah, we're in the hood of Southside Tucson, just to let everybody know. It's a beautiful area and great people, but we're here, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think a lot of that has to do with the culture of the movement that the YPG came out of, which really didn't value life much. Is frankly, and I've even heard commanders say that certain weapons were worth more than the life of one of their soldiers, like that an RPG was worth more than one of their soldiers' lives.
So what you're saying is that there they're a little ignorant on their medical, wanting to learn.
Well, it's not, it's their tactics. They're very, communist kind of tactics, where, people are expendable and just, you just literally just wave, kind of just send. I heard of my friend Jordan, who I've got tattooed on my arm here. He was in a unit, which they lost almost their entire unit because
what was his name?
Jordan McTaggart.
Jordan McTaggart. Now that was
Yeah.
a gentleman,
Was
Colorado,
killed in Manbridge. Yeah,
and then he was also. I read he was injured before.
Yeah.
And got left on the front line and then crawled
shot
all
in
the way.
leg,
He was
tourniqueted
shot in the leg.
himself, crawled back to his
Position.
unit.
He was abandoned, correct?
Yep, they left him behind. He crawled back in the middle of the night with a gunshot wound to the leg.
And then he went home, but then after
came
a
back.
couple weeks at home, he went back
A couple months, yeah.
a couple months and then
Yeah,
took
came
part in the
back.
Battle of Manbij.
Manbridge, yep, where he was killed. So, yeah, Jordan came back in 2016 to fight in Manbridge. I was supposed to go over with him.
Explain a little bit of what Manbij was, if you don't mind.
Manbij, a city on the Euphrates River. It was a really strategic point, and a real point of contention with the Turks. They did not want that city to fall.
The Turks, as in the Turkish government, the Turkish
state. Yeah,
Turkish.
They did not want that city to fall to the Kurds because it was part of what they called the. Now I'm drawing a blank. It's the something corridor where they were like Al-Bab, that region where ISIS was coming in through Turkey so like they would get injured, they would go through this corridor back into Turkey, they would get medical treatment, and then they would come back, get smuggled back into Syria.
So if nobody understands or knows, there is evidence that supports.
Not
eyewitnesses.
supports,
So
it's
it's facts.
absolutely, it's
Yeah,
fact
these are facts that
that the Turkish
yeah.
state gave material support, medical support, financial training.
Vacations. They gave vacations to Islamic State members and Al
guys who get
Nusra.
injured, they would come back into Turkey, get first class medical treatment. They would, weapons. They smuggled all this shit into Syria through this corridor. And I'm still forgetting I think was it called the Jarablus corridor? Or, I'm drawing a blank on the name.
Yeah,
but it was
I don't have it either.
Small little corridor of like
So it's a
40 kilometers or
yeah.
so that was not
Very
controlled
important, very
by-
important.
Yeah, very strategic.
And
Because
I
the
remember-
Kurds controlled
yes.
the whole northern border. In the northwestern Syria, northeastern Syria, it was just this small little pocket of like less than 40 kilometers that was controlled by the Islamic State.
And I remember at that time watching YouTube videos of the preparation with YPG crossing the Euphrates. Lots of videos coming out, a lot of armor vehicles, a lot of soldiers coming in, crossing the Euphrates. And then also at the same time those videos were coming out, there were videos of Manbij inside a mosque, and the youth 14 and up, maybe even younger, were handed AK-47s, telling them to prepare. This is where the caliphate is, and we're going to fight the Kurds and whoever comes. And they were handing AK-47s out, RPG rockets, PKMs, BKC, whatever you want to call it. A lot of ammo and a lot of ammunition in preparation to fight you.
Yep.
Or, I'm sorry, YPG. This was before you were there.
Yeah.
And let me remind you guys, Manbij is a huge deal, not only for the Battle of Manbij, for the U.S. itself, because we've lost, I'm going to say about, 6 U.S. servicemen in Manbij total, U.S. United States military, including 2 contractors. There was a serviceman died in a mishap.
That was in Ioannina.
Yeah, that's
Navy
still
SEAL.
under investigation. There was a Navy. Yeah. Let me see here. I got it written down. A U.S. serviceman killed from an IED in Manbij. Two contractors, two servicemen bombed by suicide bomb in
Yep.
Manbij in
Arrest
January
warrant.
16, 2019.
Yep.
There's a lot of actually in April 28th, 2019, a serviceman, U.S. United States serviceman, was killed by Turkish shelling, which is a NATO ally.
Yep.
You guys got to remember these things. We've had a U.S. soldier killed
By our own ally.
by our own ally. And I guess there was a rumor saying that there was also a Marine who was riding in a Kurdish vehicle was shot by a Turkish-backed sniper. Now, these are all things you can confirm online, and if I'm lying, please put it in the comments. But go ahead, go on about after Manbij. We're gonna go into after Manbij now. Manbij is a podcast on its own. Manbij was a battle where we lost a lot of American volunteers, British volunteers. We got Levi Shirley, Anthony Savage. Levi was from Colorado. Anthony
from Colorado.
Yeah, and then Anthony Savage was from Maryland.
Savage, yeah.
Good dude. Then also a UK member, Dean Carl, and
Carl
actually
Evans, yep.
Carl. I'm sorry. Repeat that name.
Dean Carl Evans.
Dean Carl Evans. Correct. This is kind of a big deal, but we're gonna jump into that on another podcast. Right now, we're gonna go to where you came in. Where did you? What was your first operation? Explain that. And that was after Manbij, correct? Directly
right
after Manbij.
It was the first phase of the Raqqa operation when we were taking the villages surrounding Raqqa. It took almost 2 years to surround.
Tabqa?
No, Raqqa.
Raqqa. Well, let's get into Tabqa because you were a lead medic, combat medic in Tabqa,
I was the chief medic for the only medical unit in the Tabqa operation. So,
explain that because I heard that's pretty much one of the biggest amphibious, which means by landing by water assaults in decades. Go ahead.
Yep. Well, no, the initial assault was reported as a huge amphibious assault, but in reality, it was my team of 10 guys and about 30 Arab militia, which crossed on this rickety old barge pulled by some fishing boats in the middle of the night and crashed into some rocks on the opposite side of the Euphrates. And we established a beachhead, and about 400 troops were flown in on Ospreys.
Explain what that is to people who don't know what that is.
Osprey is a tilt rotor aircraft. Basically, it can perform like a helicopter or an airplane. The rotors shift, so it can fly.
And 400.
Yeah, 400 soldiers, both foreign volunteers, mostly Arab militia and some YPG, were flown across in about 10 clicks south of our position.
And Arab, what do you mean by that? What
SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces,
okay.
yeah. Or they called Qasadeh, which was Syrian Defense Forces. So yeah.
Not affiliated with the FSA, correct?
No, absolutely not. Well, we did have one battalion that was former FSA, which the FSA is, that's a whole podcast in itself too. But, there were some more, there are some much more right-leaning, more Islamist units in the FSA, and then some more truly moderate units. And one of those, which was the Northern Sun Battalion, ended up fighting with the SDF. And there was one more, I forget the name. It was named after some martyr, like the General something brigade. But yeah, so there were some FSA, but not the current FSA as they are currently, which is basically just
fucking
the
Al-Qaeda.
of Al-Qaeda, yeah. My unit was part of the first wave of landing onto the enemy occupied, I don't know what you call that. The information is not a peninsula, but it's kind of like
A shoreline? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a shore.
So
that
what
we
was the
landed on,
boat
but,
ride? How long was the boat ride from your side to there?
Over an hour, and
You guys getting shot at, or did people see
we
you?
did get
What
shot at
was
a
it,
little.
day or night?
We started in the late afternoon, so it was light when we left, and as we were crossing, and then by the time we hit the shore, it was pitch dark. We did get shot at a little bit on the way over. Nothing major, but when we finally did cross. At that time I thought we were gonna die. 3 out of 4 of our engines failed, and we drifted off course. I think like 5 clicks. We ended up crashing into a swamp, and if we didn't have we had a amphibious armored vehicle with us. If we hadn't had that, we would have been totally fucked. We had to chain our vehicles to this Russian amphibious fighting vehicle, and it drug us through these like muddy, like swampy kind of.
What were the casualties on the Tapka operation?
The casualties on the Tapka operation were actually very low. I think we lost. I don't know the exact number. It was something like 100 and less than 150, I believe, and there were a lot of injuries, and a lot of that was due to our unit saving a lot of lives, which would have otherwise been lost, and the training that we provided to, which is what I'm most proud of.
And what training was that?
Provided training to the Kurds, to the YPG and YPJ, trained close to 100 of their soldiers in basic combat medicine and just basic combat life support.
And let me explain, YPG is the male organization.
The male
YPJ
militia, the YPJ is a female
correct.
militia of the Kurdish Defense Forces, yeah.
Okay. And then, so after that operation, at least seems like a success.
Yep. Yeah, major
what did you do
success.
from there? What went on from there?
That's a whole long story there. We were, so again, as I had said before, the militia, the Kurdish militia was really not, they had no medical unit, no training, and they weren't really into the idea of having medics, in their units.
Stubborn?
Yeah, the men, I noticed the men were very stubborn.
Really?
The women, they all wanted to learn. They were very eager to learn. They would always ask me and our guys for training, for equipment. Very eager to learn. Great students. The men were a little more stubborn, and a lot of them say, "Oh, we don't need medics." Of course, then when they actually get shot or blown up, they're crying for you to save their lives. Which is sad, like a lot of these guys are dying needlessly, and it's very much part of this culture in the movement, which has been since its inception in the 70s, this martyr culture where it's glorious to die for the cause. It's like it's honorable, sure, but why die if you don't have to? And I noticed just this attitude. It was kind of like we don't really give a shit, and it's one thing to see that in the Kurds, but in some of so there's a distinction between volunteers and then what they call cadres, which are lifetime people who've committed themselves to serve in this movement for life. And there are some Westerners who become cadres. They're mostly German, I've noticed, but some of them are just complete morons. And this one particular, which was the commander of the training academy when I went there, was just so into this jihad, this martyr culture, that he was like, almost like, you should die for this cause. Like,
wow.
It's,
Well, that's scary.
Well, yeah, but and then of course he never fought. He actually, it turns out later on that he transferred to they call Tevdem, which is like some, like social like. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's not military. You have no chance of being killed in Tevdem. But yeah, he just avoided the front lines.
So he took an easy route. And
and he had been in the militia before, and
he was not Kurdish. He was foreign.
German.
German. Okay.
Yeah, just complete coward.
And communist,
just,
huh?
Yep.
Like a part of the communist
Yep.
movement out there, and
Yeah, Antifa.
let everybody know that there were volunteers out there that were not political at all. They just wanted to fight ISIS, help the Kurds. They knew that what they did with the U.S. military and the Operation Iraqi Freedom, and they just wanted to help the cause. And then you had some people were out there for their own reason. It seems like either a leftist movement or even a right wing movement. Just to let everybody know that the international community of the YPG and the Peshmerga and all these the Syriatic defense force, they're all very different. They're all people coming
very
from different
motivations.
Yeah, very different motivations. So go ahead. So Tabka's over.
Yep.
You guys are hanging out, and you guys are prepping for Raqqa. Now,
no,
who is Kevin? Who is Kevin Howard? Tell us who Kevin Howard is. 'Cause that was your battle buddy. When did you meet him? This guy, from what I've read, heard, seen, this guy's a legend in his own sense. Who was he to you, and where did you guys meet up? And in the beginning of Raqqa phase,
we met in late 2016 because the then commander of my unit had formerly served with somebody in Kevin's unit at that time. He was in a Kurdish unit, and he was actually thinking about leaving Syria before he'd ever gone to fight, just because they were getting treated like shit in this unit. They were being made to do all the guard shifts. They just completely getting dicked around. He told me a story once that he was on a guard on the top of a building. They gave him a PKM, and he opened it up to maintain it. He was a good soldier. He was always checking his weapons and maintaining. And noticed there was no bolt in there. And he said, "What the fuck?" And I said, "Oh, So, well, what if I needed to use this?" And they said, "Oh, you won't need to use it." You fucking kidding me? So, yeah, that was where he was at.
So they gave him a gun that didn't work.
Yeah.
That wouldn't shoot a bullet. They gave him a gun on a front line
function.
that wouldn't give him
It wasn't the front line, but still, we were in an area where there were suicide bombings, there were attacks. So that was what he was dealing with when I met him, and he really wanted to get out of there. So I was like, well, why don't you join our unit? Why don't you bring all your guys over? At that time,
what unit is that? What is you guys are still part of the YPG?
YPG's tactical medical unit. So yeah, at the time we only had I think 5 or 6 members. We were pretty we were down to less than a squad strength. So there were, I think, 7 guys with him at the time. Why don't you bring all your guys over, and we'll have a proper tabor, Kurdish for platoon. So he was able to get his whole unit, all the Westerners in his unit, to come over with us, and my good friend Justin Snap was with them. Time 2, he's a former U.S. Army sniper. My buddy Damien is now serving in Ukraine. So we had a really good, solid unit.
Damien Rodriguez?
Rodriguez, yeah.
Yeah, correct. He's serving with the Western Ukrainian Marines?
The Ukrainian Marines, yeah.
Correct.
And that was his second tour in Syria, too. He actually served with Jordan previously, Jordan's first tour. So
was he in the Battle of Manbij?
No, he was not.
Okay.
So Kevin transferred over to our unit. He ended up becoming commander of our unit, and I became chief medical officer in the months leading up to Topka. So
I'm sorry, I'm going to stop you there. Before you get into why don't you explain a little bit about Kevin Howard, who he was, and where he came from? Real quick.
Kevin grew up in orphanages. He joined the Marine Corps at 17.
San Francisco, correct?
Yeah, in that area.
Okay.
Joined the Marine Corps at 17 as soon as he was able to. He had his adopted mother sign the waiver so he could join the Marines. He did 4 years in the Marines. Got out, came back home, and he went back and joined the Foreign Legion. and he was in the Foreign Legion when I was first in Syria, and he ended up deserting the Foreign Legion to come to Syria to fight because they weren't doing shit in the Legion. He was in the Legion during the Bataclan shooting.
You know what? You know what unit he was in the Foreign Legion?
Second Engineers.
Second Engineers. Okay.
So, after Bataclan, he was really excited. So, when are we gonna go after these motherfuckers? And his commander was like, "Yeah, we're not gonna." What are you talking about? It's supposed to be the Foreign Legion. He'd been there for 3 years. He hadn't even been promoted to Legionnaire First Class, and he had been a sergeant in the Marine Corps. So you can imagine. And I tell any friend of mine who's talking about joining the Legion, who's got any prior military experience, that you're going from being a sergeant or a lieutenant or in the Western military, you're going to go from that to just scrubbing toilets and just being shit on in the French army. Like, you're not going to like it, man. So he deserted the Foreign Legion, came to Syria, and was with a regular Kurdish unit. And as I said, he ended up joining my unit. So, we served in top together. He commanded the TMU and did an excellent job. Which, again, you have to understand that an operation of maybe 10,000 troops, we were the only medical support. My unit, which was myself and Tom, British volunteer, was the only other medic on the front line during this operation.
Right on.
So we had literally 2 trained medics in this entire operation who were responsible for the lives of thousands and thousands of troops.
Topka.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so how did Raqqa fall into place?
Well, Raqqa, by then, we had left. Kevin and I had left the YPG and joined the Syriac Military Council.
And explain who they are a little bit. Go ahead and explain.
Well, they're initially were a militia of mostly Syriac, which are a Christian minority in the Middle East, mostly in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq, who had set up their own self-defense force in, I believe, 2015. They wanted to be separate from the YPG, just had a different ideology, wanted their own defense force. So yeah, it was mainly Syriac militia, some Arab volunteers.
Right on. So how did the Raqqa operation start? How long did you guys prep for?
About a month.
About a month. And what were the supplies you guys gathered?
Well, by then we actually got a decent amount of supplies. We got some Humvees. Again, this is after Trump took office, so we really got hooked up. Brand new rifles, Toyota Hiluxes, armored vehicles.
Because before that, some people had some broken AKs, huh?
Yeah, I had an AK-47 that was made in the 40s. It was made in 1949.
Wow.
Yeah. Obama was just a complete disaster. I mean, some people call him the Godfather down there. The Godfather of ISIS. He did more to enable ISIS and the FSA.
It's just any extremist group that's coming up.
He did more to enable them than he did to
Hillary Clinton
to support. Hillary Clinton would have been. I thank God that she wasn't elected president. Well, because Trump took office while I was over there. I actually witnessed a regime change between Obama and Trump, and saw firsthand how drastically different foreign policy could be under different administrations. It was radically different.
Yeah, some people get upset the outcome after Raqqa, the decision of the Trump administration and what they did, and allowed the FSA to kind of
and
the
I'm
Turkish-backed
upset about that
FSA.
too.
Yeah,
I think we all are. But I think the important thing to remember is what would he have had without Trump? Without
Yeah,
Trump, there wouldn't
exactly.
be a YPG. It would have been the FSA would have been armed, would have
Yeah.
been financed, would have been, which is Al Qaeda. And Hillary Clinton admitted, she was confronted, saying, your plan, your foreign policy in the Middle East was to fund Al Qaeda. And she said something like, well, it's hard to keep up with these groups because they change their names so often. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, yeah, that is a true thing.
Yeah, she was going to give
I
money
mean,
to Al Qaeda
yeah, I mean,
and weapons.
she
People
didn't
don't
care.
believe me when I tell them this. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
no, they don't.
no.
I
That was
bet.
her strategy to combat ISIS was to fund and train Al Qaeda. The slightly less extreme, yeah. So it's just, again, I mean, the situation over there is just so bad. I mean, I think Trump was as bad, as his policies were. They would have been a lot worse under Clinton. I mean,
All right, so it's the Raqqa operation. You guys are ready to assault the city.
yeah,
What side did you guys come in on?
came
What
from the south.
the south?
Yeah, and we came up and drove up on the western side of the city.
And then what was your role in this operation?
Well, I was the platoon medic. Of course, I ended up being, a lot of guys from the YPG recognized me, and they would all ask me to take care of their guys too. Recognizing me from Topka, because there were almost no medics in the Rock operation, which was really unfortunate. So yeah, I was still a medic, but was also a counter sniper. So Kevin and I were a sniper team. We went out and hunted enemy snipers. So we would track them. We would either engage them, directly, or with some of them. Like one case where we were battling this sniper he was shooting at us with a 50 cal, which was way out of range for us with our 30-06.
So what were you guys using?
We were carrying it was a modified 30-06. It was a 7.8, I believe, millimeter Yugoslav rifle. Of course, with a 4-power scope, you can't engage somebody a kilometer away shooting it with a 50 cal. They recovered his rifle later. They said it was like some decked out Chinese bullpup, and the slugs that they were firing at us were solid steel, tungsten penetrators. I got shot at with one of them. It got so close it, knocked my hair back. It went through 3 walls of reinforced concrete.
So resistance at Raqqa was
right through
as
it. It
much
was
as
very heavy.
They were resisting.
Yeah,
and what's the closest
hard.
combat that you saw and that you witnessed out there, or that you know of?
Well, we got attacked head on a few times, within like 50 meters. But like I said, most of the work that we did was engaging enemy snipers, so it was anywhere between 200 and 800 meters for engagements out to over a kilometer away when we'd call in airstrikes.
Yeah, how would you guys do that, man? I mean, it just seems like such a city. It's a huge. For nobody who knows Raqqa, Raqqa is a huge city. We're talking major buildings,
massive,
just huge, huge concrete jungle.
Literally like square
and just
miles
obliterated
of
during this operation.
High rises. Yeah, 90% of the city was completely destroyed.
Okay, so how would you guys draw out the enemy snipers?
Well, we would draw them out with, by ourselves. Called it running the rabbit. One of us would expose ourselves to, enemy fire, and then when they would start engaging us, the other would take a shot at them.
So actually exposing your own body.
Yeah.
I mean, putting yourself in harm's way.
Yep.
Not having a shooter shoot and kind of draw fire from the sniper, but actually wow, really.
It's really the only way to do it. I mean,
and you guys had how many guys did you have in your unit that were foreigners? Explain your unit to everybody here. Just you and Kevin.
Yep.
Okay.
We had a British volunteer who was with us for a short amount of time, but didn't really do any fighting with us. He was mostly there in like a media capacity. He ended up fighting later on in a different unit, but I wasn't with him at that time.
And in Raqqa?
Yeah, in Raqqa.
Okay.
He actually almost got killed in that fight. Got shot in the chest, in the fortunately, he was wearing a vest.
Right on. So, what were you guys' accomplishments during that battle?
Um, quite a few. Actually, the first battle, the first fight of that battle, I actually took out a ISIS command post, which ended that particular engagement. They were targeting us for mortar and rocket fire. Pretty impressive precision mortar fire from about 2 kilometers away, and I was up on a roof spotting, while I'm getting shot at. Rockets, fired at me. They dropped a couple bombs from drones on me, but they were scouting with drones, pointing our positions and then firing, mortars and rockets at them.
Explain a little bit more about those drones. I don't mean to get off topic, but these little small drones that we see,
drones that
you use every day.
That people, the same kind of people.
What were they able to do with those?
They'd rig them up to explode. They'd rig them to drop bombs. They had some bigger ones that they could rig up with an actual, it was a cylinder with 8 grenades in it, and they could drop all of them at once, or they could drop them individually, so they could fly around. And I actually got hit by one of them, one of the larger ones, and they were pretty. I was pretty shocked. I actually treated casualties from the first bombing, and when they brought them in, they were saying, so they don't differentiate in the Kurdish language between helicopter, plane. They didn't have a word for drone at the time. They were just saying TR, which meant, I thought, plane. So I said they got hit by a plane, so I assumed it was blue on blue. The Americans had bombed, and they'd gotten close to it and gotten lit up.
Oh, like
so
an accidental,
okay, yeah.
like an accidental bombing. Does that happen a lot?
It does happen a lot. It didn't happen much when I was there. It was actually pretty rare in Raqqa. But yeah, so I assumed that, and they said no, Dash. That's no, ISIS did it. I'm like, how? They don't have planes. And he said no, and finally got me to understand it was a drone. And I'm like, how is that? And I was picturing they had just strapped C4 to a drone and had wired up a remote detonator and flew it into the boat and blew it up. But they had dropped, and you can look online. They took pictures of it too. They had a camera on the drone. You can see pictures of the grenade falling onto the boat, and they just dropped it right into this boat, blew up 40 guys. So yeah, after that, that became a really pretty big game changer. You'd see those all over the place. We couldn't get on the roofs anymore. It was really dangerous to get on roofs.
So there was a position that you saw that were throwing those out, and you took it out,
when they were spotting, and I managed to pinpoint it and call in an airstrike and take the building out.
Wow, a whole airstrike, huh?
Yep.
And who led that airstrike?
I was an American F-15. They dropped, as far as I could tell, full payload of 500-pounders. So just completely leveled the building.
So the U.S. Air Force was directly correlating with the Kurdish YPG/SDF.
Yep.
In the Battle of Raqqa. And you were one of the soldiers who were calling in an airstrike.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. And how many of those have you called in before that? Previously,
that was the first one.
Oh, that's what you said. That's right.
Yeah, it was the
right.
first fight of that battle.
All right. So then, what went on from there?
Well, then, like I said, we pushed up north on the west side of the city. And
was there anybody pushing on the east?
Yeah, well, we had completely surrounded the city, and we're just all pushing it from different
sides.
sides.
All YPG, all SDF, all Kurdish.
Mostly Arab, SDF, yeah.
SDF, okay.
Which
is the Syrian Democratic Forces.
Yeah. Okay. But we had Syriac Defense Forces, the YPJ, Shengal Defense Units. It was a pretty big operation.
Okay, so you guys are pushing up. And then go ahead and explain from there. You and Kevin are counter sniping.
We were going ahead of our unit and engaging enemy snipers. A couple operations that Kevin went on, night ops, which he told me he never wanted to go on again. It was just totally insane. Just suicide missions, basically, which I went on. I think one of the first nights I was there, I went on one of these. And it was just ridiculous. They wanted me to cover them with, and I didn't have a thermal or infrared scope. Like I trying to explain to them, I can't cover you. I can't see out of this scope, unless it's directly like into a room that has a light on it. I can't see you guys. I can't protect you. And they're just, oh yeah, like.
And what were they doing? Like, were they just a strike force that comes in?
Just going, like literally going house to house, blowing the doors down, and going in and looking for ISIS. Which,
were there a lot of foreign fighters from ISIS? Like a lot of people?
Oh yeah, thousands. I mean,
what countries are we talking about that joined ISIS?
Chechnya, France.
Chechnya.
There were so many.
Let me stop you there. Let me stop you there. Now, let me explain something about the Chechens. From what I read up on, well, how do you say?
Chechens.
From what I read up on and what I know, what I've seen, big time sharpshooters, man. Yeah. I mean, hardcore.
Well, most of the snipers that we were fighting were Chechens. Wow. In the sector that we were in, we'd recovered a lot of intel that was all written in Cyrillic, and girl I was dating at the time was Russian. And I'd send her pictures, from the front line. It was amazing that we had Wi-Fi in the front. And I'd be like, what does this say? And she'd say, oh, that's like directions for like the prayer to say before a suicide bombing, or this is like how to like maintain a certain weapon, or like. And she's like, yeah, those look like Chechens. I'm like, shit. So yeah, actually, the sniper that I was talking about, who had the 50 cal, was a Chechen. Was probably a veteran of Grozny or something. I mean,
for those of you who don't know, Grozny was a battle between Russia and the Chechens. Now, Russia. Well, explain this. I think you know a little more than I do about Grozny. I know a little bit, but go ahead and explain that a little more. The Russians attacked Grozny and Chechnya. Yeah.
Russian Republic.
The KGB, right?
War,
so they were Soviet Union.
Yeah.
But Chechens are not Russian.
No, Chechens are not Russian. Okay. So, yeah, again, like many of those countries in Georgia, Azerbaijan, and former Soviet republics, which wanted independence, and a couple of them, like Georgia in 2007, and I don't remember which year the Chechen War was. I think it was like 95.
Yeah, from 93 till 96.
Okay. So, yeah, that was at the time before Raqqa was the biggest urban battle in modern history. It was,
yeah. It was Grozny.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a
IEDs,
lot of
snipers like that. Actually, they said that was where a lot of the
and the U.S. supported Chechens.
Not directly. No,
all right,
just like Ukraine. Like, I mean, we support them, but.
So let's get back into Raqqa.
So yeah,
you guys are pushing.
Yeah, mostly Chechens that we were fighting, which were the worst of the worst. Just absolute savages. I mean, they were tough, man. Like, and there were fights where it was like literally like 6 on 2, and I mean, this is, like one guy with a 50 cal with a spotter, and then like 4 guys with M16s who were all like harassing us from different angles, and then this guy's just able to just totally zero in and just, while we're trying to engage multiple targets.
Islamic State,
got one rifle and a spotter between,
So you guys got a lot of pushback from there. It wasn't easy.
Yeah,
it wasn't. A lot of people think they're just going to go out there and kick ISIS's ass. These people had tactics to draw you in.
They had an entire tunnel network under the city where they could drive.
Absolutely.
But
even before that, Tel Tamir, Sarakani, they'd have these tactics of drawing you in. You seem like you're submitting them, and they suck you in. And then what they do, they flank on you.
Yep.
And then when you're in the red zone, I call it a red zone, is where you can't get out, and they just light you up.
You either beat them back or you don't make it out.
Yeah. So these are the tactics that these guys were dealing with in Raqqa. I mean, maybe even more harsher. I think it. I'm not too familiar.
Yeah, because of IEDs, which you didn't have in places like Tel Tamir, and Manbij was definitely the worst for IEDs because they had so much time to fortify that city. Raqqa, they were able to fortify certain parts of the city, but because it was occupied by the time, they knew that we were coming from in Manbij. Topka was literally like, there were generals who didn't know a top coup was going to happen a day before it kicked off. It was such a secret operation where we just driven down to this riverbank, and then like an hour before, we're told exactly, okay, you're going to assault this beach. It was a beach that we're going to fly 400 troops over on rotary, aircraft and take this position. You're going to like basically link up and, secure this whole peninsula, and then you're going to flank them up, south and fight your way into the city, because they'd fortified the entire northern and eastern parts of the city, thinking that there's no way we're going to be able to get, to their southern front or western front.
So explain a little more. So you guys push up.
Yeah.
How long was this battle? How long were you into it towards the end?
It was over 5 months.
What's up with the sleeping, man? How much sleep did you get?
Oh, it depends. I mean, sometimes we'll go days without sleeping. Other times
Food?
we actually slept pretty. But they ate pretty well, actually, because we get delivery almost every day of, hot food from a armored
And these guys are risking their lives to bring you food.
One of the most dangerous occupations was a driver. I knew a couple guys that got killed. I treated one guy who got his whole like lower legs and midsection just got completely torn to pieces by a rocket.
Let me remind people that we've also lost U.S. servicemen in Raqqa and U.S. veterans volunteering with the SDF and volunteering with the YPG and the A-Syrians and the Shangal units. We've lost Europeans. We've lost everybody fighting. Pretty much a lot of countries, volunteers have died in this battle, man, including a few Americans and a couple American veterans. So go ahead and so you're about 5 months in. You guys are, war torn. Obviously, I mean you have to be after 5 months of battle. You have to be just war torn. What was the ending like?
It was pretty anticlimactic. I mean, because we weren't at the, the last part. One of the last positions it was taken was the stadium, which was, a really
theatrical. I don't mean to be like,
what I'm saying.
Not fake or anything, but it was like a
like
really, a movie, man. Like this is it.
Yeah, exactly. Like that was where they held all the executions, and so it was like a really like not strategic, symbolic point. So yeah, once the stadium was taken, it was over. They declared operations over. There was still, like, my friend Jack got killed 3 days after that. The stadium was taken. Jack Holmes.
Jack Holmes was a British volunteer who was very famous out there. Very good guy. Unfortunately, I mean he was part of the operation of Tel Tamer. We're talking about 2 years before. Yeah. The legend of this guy is solid. He was a UK member that got shot through his arm in the operation of Tel Tamer and didn't give a fuck. Just kept fighting. I think he just got like a bandage or whatever and kept going. A lot of guys who get small injuries, they tend to go home. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them they get they lose a little confidence in themselves and
understandable.
Yeah, it's very understandable. I mean, this isn't a video game. This is something that you don't get a second chance.
Until you're smoking a cigarette on a rooftop, your friend's head explodes, and then 2 seconds later you hear the crack of a rifle.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Jack Holmes, for sure, man. Legendary guy. That's a podcast in himself. But go on. So you're at the end of Raqqa. You guys took the stadium.
Well, we weren't even there, to take the stadium. We were, like 4 clicks west, defending some position that was. Yeah, so like it was a pretty anticlimactic. Like we weren't even, didn't even see the. There was like a huge celebration there that flew the SDF flag over the stadium, and we weren't
Kevin,
anywhere close.
Yeah, you and Kevin were just sitting somewhere else.
Yeah, we were just on a post somewhere.
Right on. What was it? What did it feel like when someone told you, "Hey, this is it. We did it, Sir Captain. Fucking victory."
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it just didn't even seem like any other day.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, because you guys were so used to living that every day for 5 months that when that came about, you guys were just like, oh, well, fucking reality is definitely not going to set in right now, man.
Deployment of most people is like, 6-7 months. We're talking 5 months of straight combat on the front. That's not a 5-month deployment.
That's a
out of
huge
a
battle.
2-year deployment, just 5 months on the front line.
Yeah, that's
which is never.
huge.
I don't think that's ever happened in modern history. As far as I know, the longest, I think, Hue City was like 4 months.
Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just.
And then Iwo Jima was like 50 days or something. This was 170 some days.
And what can we say about
200 and.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like almost 200 some days.
So what was the outcome of the civilian casualties? What did you see Islamic State doing to civilians trying to flee?
Shit. Welding them into houses, because all of the doors there are metal, doors and windows, everything. Most houses there are made out of block and metal. They don't have wood, anything there. So house will be made out of either like earth brick or concrete block reinforced with rebar, and then metal door and metal windows. So they just drive by with a mobile truck with a generator and an arc welder and weld people inside these buildings, so that when we bomb them, the civilians would get killed and we would look like, like bad guys, like we were killing civilians. But the actual outcome of the battle was the civilian casualties were less than the enemy, which has also never happened as far as I know in modern warfare. It's usually the civilian casualties are way higher.
Do you think that it was less than the civilian casualty was less than Mosul in Iraq?
As far as I know, it was higher.
Wow. Okay. All right. So you're at the end of that. You and Kevin were chilling at an outside position about 4 clicks from the stadium.
Yeah.
What happened? Go from there, man. What happened from there?
And we went back to Derrick, which was our main base, and at this time we had been separated. Our commander at the time was a complete idiot. I wrote a report to the high commander regarding his incompetence, and he was eventually relieved of command.
For the Assyrians?
Yeah. Just a complete idiot. He had this idea that he was going to change the units around every 3 or 4 days, was going to completely, we had 2 platoons, and he's like, well, we're going to change commanders and change. I'm like, why would you do that? He's like, well, because guys start fighting, disagreeing and stuff. I'm like, that's part of bonding. That's part of, cohesion, It's like, that's not how you do things. And you don't split up a sniper team. It's like, well, then I could have 2 snipers, 1 in each platoon. And that's not how it works, man. How many times I've almost been killed and he's pulled my head down, or the same for him, or, or even how this shit works, like running the rabbit. You can't do that with one person, but he managed to split us up near the end. So at one point I thought he was dead. He thought I was dead. And then we both come to this position and see each other, and I ran over to him, getting a big hug, and he's like, somebody told me you got killed. I'm like, yeah, I heard you got killed too. And we drove back to Derrick, and we're just exhausted. I remember we stopped and got beer on the way back. We're sitting back, and one of the noctas, and this guy comes in, and he's like, oh, hey, can't drink that. And Kevin just picks up his rifle, doesn't even look at him, just racks the rifle, and he says, fuck off, and cracks the beer. And we drank it. We just had 1 beer, literally like a tall can. And then this guy, Amin, who had been our commander at the time.
And the Assyrians like to drink.
Yeah, they drink.
They just
drink.
fucking with these guys for what, man?
Yeah, exactly. So
he
calls
dumb.
up and he's like, I heard you guys were drinking beer. I said, yeah, what is it to you? What do you go, fuck? You didn't even fight. Fuck you. And I'm not going to tolerate that kind of talk. And I said, I don't give a fuck. Come in here, I'll kick your fucking ass. And so I don't tolerate drinking beer. And he's like, and the whole town's talking about you. It's like, you're dating a Muslim, and Kevin was drinking beer and walking around with a can of beer. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Said, we just fucking took this fucking city, and I didn't see you out there at all. So yeah, we can drink a beer to celebrate. It said everybody in this unit drinks. Said our commander is shooting heroin on the front. And he's like, war is stressful. I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so you
man,
come home and you get high and you drink and shit. You don't
not
shoot
on the front
heroin
line,
on the
man.
front and pass out and have your medic have to revive the guy.
And explain a little about. I mean, what you just said is going to be a surprise to a lot of people. This is nothing different from Vietnam. And in the Middle East, you got to understand in Rojava, specifically is that on a lot of these operations, they have came across massive amount of drugs.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with
pounds of meth on these
pounds of
guys
meth.
and-
We're talking heroin, meth.
Well,
You
they
know,
didn't.
whatever what I'm
They
sorry.
mostly did stimulants, meth and Captagon.
Yes, to keep them fighting.
Yeah, to keep going.
To keep them
Especially
fighting.
when you get an airstrike.
You would
like,
see these
well,
things
what
out
we
there.
would
You
find
would
is
see
like
these things.
we'd find stashes of meth, and then my dazzlon, which is just a hardcore benzodiazepine, which will knock your ass out for like a day. So they were, imagine if you get an airstruck like 24/7 and just hold up like the bombs just falling all around you. Your nerves are completely shot, so they're taking meth to like stay up when they have to, and then just knocking themselves out with benzos. And then someone will wake up and take a hit of meth or Captagon and go back at it. I mean, that was some of these guys. You catch these guys and they'd be totally like they look like these guys, in like South Florida, like whacked out on bath salts, just like literally like ready to eat your face off. Like just didn't know where they were just completely, totally out of it. I mean,
now, did any like YPG or Assyrian, like you said, your commander, he had a problem with the heroin on the front line. We're talking in the middle of this battle.
I mean, I'd have to sleep on my med bag under my stomach, lay down on it.
Just so he wouldn't steal your
steal
combat medic
exactly.
for casualties, man.
Yeah.
Somebody who's injured. Okay, were there any foreigners that you saw?
On the front? No.
No. Okay.
No.
Interesting. Yeah, that's...
No, it was pretty... I mean, it was mostly ISIS. It was pretty rare, and you wouldn't see it in the YPG. This was just in the MFS.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, and guys were trying to get me to smuggle in beer and stuff, and I said, dude, fuck you. You don't
I did hear they had
you're a fucking idiot.
I did hear they had some warm wood and some hashish.
Oh yeah, no, we smoked hash like after operations.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, totally.
I see some hash out there.
But,
fucking,
yeah.
Some warm wood. I don't know if anybody knows a warm wood's from like a root or something, and it grinds down. And I mean, they have it. It's prevalent in the U.S. It's just like a small... I've heard they use it a lot. People have smelt it out there a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, mostly, like I said, I mean, Dash was just getting completely whacked out on it. There were, some guys like it would take Captagon to stay up for a day or two. I mean, when you're getting hit on three sides and overwhelming... you got 20 guys who are fighting off 300 guys in your perimeter, and
basically the moral of the story is that there's been drug use since World War II, since Blitzkrieg.
There's been drug use probably since
since
World
War
people were
I.
beating each other to death with rocks.
Yeah. Okay, so anyways, you guys are at the end of Raqqa. You guys had an issue with your commandment and the beer incidents, and then you came back and said, accused their commanders, or not accused them, but basically busted them out about using hardcore drugs on the front line. And so what went on?
Yeah,
from
man, I
there?
told them, I don't care what you do. When you come back or you're on leave, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Do bath salts. I don't care.
Yeah. But what happened from there?
Yeah, on the front, it's totally unacceptable. Yeah. So I got into it with that commander Omid, and basically like made it clear that like one of us was gonna go, like we were not gonna. Like if I was there, I was gonna just like call his ass out to high command until I got kicked out or whatever. And the high commander ended up listening to me. I wrote a full report, like a 25-page report on his incompetence, on like what he had done that was just totally. And again, I'm not, I wasn't even like a, I was like a platoon commander. I wasn't, Anyway, this guy was supposed to be like equivalent to like a colonel, and I knew more about commanding a battalion than he did. So like just basic shit, like which he did not understand at all.
So
and
what went on from there?
Like I'm not a professional by any means, and I know more than this guy. Like this is.
So what happened?
He got relieved of his command eventually, and then at that point, the war was pretty much over. Time to go home. So. Fortunately, by that time, it was pretty hard to get across the border. I ended up being, and then by that time I was also started to feel effects of that drone bombing. When I got hit by that grenade, the effects were pretty delayed. It was, weeks later, I started having seizures. I lost my depth perception. It was, point where I went blind for like a week.
So you were injured in the Battle of Raqqa?
Yeah.
So what happened? Explain a little about that.
I was walking from one position to another in a safe zone where we, had occupied. Like, there was no way I was gonna. I mean, I still had my rifle at the ready, but there was no way I was gonna get into any engagement. I was walking on my own, it was totally safe. I mean, on the ground, and I'm walking like under, awnings and. But right when I get to there was this drone just following me. I couldn't hear it or see it. Right when I get to the front gate, I walk around the side of this truck.
A small drone or a U.S. drone?
No, it was a tiny little
Islamic State drone.
Yeah, okay. Quadcopter. And then, most of the time there, I mean, there's no wind at all. It's just literally no wind at all. This is like one of the first gusts of wind I felt in like days during the day. And this huge gust of wind comes, is probably what saved my life. And then I just feel like myself flying through the air, and then I open my eyes and I'm on my back. And this grenade, which is a fin stabilizer, machine balsa wood, fallen down and probably drifted to the other side of this truck, because I'm sure they were pointing it right at me, and just blew up, just tore up the whole side of the vehicle, but it carried through the windows and knocked me up against the wall. Got a little bit of shrapnel on my sides. A lot of
shrapnel, huh?
Yeah. And
I see you on Facebook. You're still pulling out shrapnel.
Yeah, there's still pieces. Not from that specific incident. The others, rockets and shit. You don't even feel it at the time. I mean, just like what Jack told me when he got shot. He didn't even know it. Little stuff like that. You don't notice it when you're. You find out later. But anyhow, yeah. So I was like, at that point, I couldn't even cross the border. I was like incapacitated. It took me almost 3 months to where I was able to get home, and even then I was in a wheelchair,
And then so you crossed from Syria back into Iraq?
Back in Iraq. Yeah.
And what happened then?
Got arrested for visa violation. They
said,
well, you got a 15-day visa, and you've been here almost 2 years. Yeah. Well, okay, there's going to be a fine. I'm like, yeah, it was like $600 fine or something. And then they tried to extort me at the airport. They're like, yeah, they knew I had money on me. I don't know how. But
did they give you a departure card?
Yeah.
And so they gave you a departure card, and the people at the airport were
but see, the thing was, because at that time, the airports in Sully were closed for international flights, so I had to fly to Baghdad and then fly from Baghdad, which was totally like, you'd never go to Baghdad. Sketchy,
dude.
As fuck.
That's sketchy.
Yeah, nobody would want to be. I mean, well, I knew like Liz Turner had to go through Turkey to get home.
Fuck, are you kidding me? And she didn't get pulled up at that airport?
Oh yeah, but
they didn't do nothing. They didn't. Wow.
Let them go, but.
Interesting.
That's
interesting. Because just to let people know, Turkish, they do not accept any. No. They do not like the Kurdish supporters at all. They consider
they put
them terrorists, man.
Two of our husband and wife couple did 3 years in prison.
Yeah. Wow.
Just for trying to go over there. They didn't even do anything.
Okay, so you got home, and how has it been for you, man? Explain a little bit of that.
No, it's been all right. It's and you who don't know, Kevin killed himself last year.
Yeah, so those who don't know, Kevin Howard, man, he came home, ran into a rough patch, and then 2019, correct?
Yep.
I think it was May, June.
Last day of May, yeah.
Last day of May. Kevin Howard on A Mountain.
Or April. I'm sorry.
April. Kevin Howard, unfortunately.
Wait a minute. No, it's March. So I mix up May and March all the time.
That's all right.
Last day of March, yeah.
So
April 1st.
He was on A Mountain, and he took his own life. We're talking about a Marine veteran. He was in the French Foreign Legion, and was a commander for the Assyrians in Raqqa, took part in TABCA operations. This was a great American who dealt with combat vet issues when he came home and ended up taking his life. What do you think about the VA? I mean, just to get into that, I mean, knowing about Kevin, knowing his history, knowing you, and that was your battle buddy. What can you say about the VA, and then the mental wellness of U.S. veteran soldiers coming back from war?
Well, they're certainly doing a lot better under the current administration, but still nowhere near ideal. At the time that Kevin was coming home, I remember he was homeless. I told him, like, come down here, stay here as long as you want. He was, he didn't want to. I told him it was no problem. It wasn't like it was be putting me out of.
Let me stop you right there, and let me remind people, the reason why we're bringing up the VA with Kevin is because Kevin is a former U.S. Marine. Paul was not in the U.S. military. I think these volunteers they let me know that they don't expect anything from the VA or anything from the American people. They wanted to fight ISIS. They wanted to combat Al-Qaeda because they are enemies of Americans. Doesn't matter what color of American you are, what language you speak as an American. To them, you are an enemy. So these guys just wanted to go fight. But the reason why we're bringing up the VA is because Kevin Howard was a former Marine. He had a right to the VA. And I'm sorry, go ahead. Proceed.
So, yeah, at the time he was homeless. He wouldn't accept any money or help from me. And I was trying to get him help through the VA. And they had told him at the time, he asked, where's he staying? He said, I'm literally sleeping in a bush in some, like, area where people are getting shot. Like, I saw somebody get killed the other night. And like, well, can you stay there like between like 1 and 7 months until we can get you a house?
And where was
just
this?
like in San Francisco. I ended up convincing him finally to let me help him get down here, and he did, fortunately. And seemed to be doing a lot better, but ended up taking another turn because of some personal issues, and then
And that happened on a mountain, which was very unfortunate. Right on, man. Thank you, Paul, for taking your time to. What was your Kurdish name? What was your gorilla name, by any?
Harry.
Harry.
Dirty
All right.
Harry.
Dirty Harry. Right on, man. Legend, dude. Legend. Counter sniper, Raqqa. Lead medic, chief medic. Excuse me. Top operation. Just to let everybody know, too, this is the start of the veteran free raffle. Put your name in the comment. Anybody in California can win up to an ounce of medical marijuana from my sponsorship, Dank City Delivery. If you do not smoke marijuana and you are a veteran, that is fine. We have the cash equivalent. Go ahead and leave your name and MOS in the comments. We want to thank Paul. Paul, thank you so much for what you've done for this country. Sorry for the losses of your friend. And, man, thank you very much for coming on the Gouda.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely, man. You're a great guy, and we've known each other for a while, and I really appreciate your service to us and everything that you do. Explain to everybody what type of things you got going. I heard you got some property you want to start kind of getting together for veterans.
What I want to do eventually, and Kevin and I talked about this, that we need a place to come home to, because a lot of guys, I mean, like Kevin, in his case, he literally came home to nothing. If he hadn't had me and his Marine brothers, he wouldn't have had anything. And some guys do come home to literally nothing. They don't have family. They don't have. And even if you do, I mean, you can have the best family in the world. If you don't have people who understand what you went through and are able to reconnect with that and relate, then that's really hard. And it said, been talking for a while how we need a space to come back to where we can feel safe and, safe to talk about what we went through, re-experience things, and just do bad shit, we want to put in a shooting range and like a a spot where they can come down and park a trailer or camp out for a couple weeks, months, as long as they need to. Just have a space to
de-stress.
Yeah, exactly. If they want to like start, writing memoirs or just whatever they got to do to process what they went through, and also have like group, you know, events and stuff like, where guys can come together and work through their trauma, like with other.
Yeah, because these guys are coming back.
Gone through it.
These guys are coming back with some trauma. They have came back with some trauma. Rocco was about a couple years ago, man, and
3 years ago.
3 years ago, man, and we still have people coming back with issues and trying to live their life without the VA, man, and right on, man. Well, thank you, Paul, for sharing your story, man. I really appreciate that, and thank you for coming on the Gouda. And right on, man. I think that's a wrap.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no doubt.